I'm just saying.
Just saying, just what?
Well, you're American, okay?
Okay. What kind of American are you?
The redistricting wars is in reality a Cold War civil war happening in the United States. California, Texas, Chicago, and soon to be many others are engaged in what you might call the first stages of active combat. As incredible as that might sound, this is not blown out of proportion or hyperbole. It's happening right now. This is beyond the civic norms of what is nationally customary. This is a Cold War that is now internally happening. A Cold War is defined as political hostility between countries or states characterized by threats, propaganda, and other measures short of open warfare. Political infighting, Cold War style, refers to intense political competition within a country using various tactics, including ideology, propaganda, and even elements of espionage, reminiscent of the geopolitical rivalry between the US and the USSR during the Cold War. What is happening here is far more than political theater. This is adversarial posturing and positioning. Lines are being drawn in the sand, both figuratively and literally. Sides are being formed. Countermeasures are being set up. All you have to do is use a checklist to see if this fits the scenario of what a typical civil Cold War looks like. Political hostility, check. Propaganda, like blaming the other side for what's happening, check. Threats, threatening one side that they will receive jail time if they don't perform in a certain style and way that the other side demands, that will be a big check. Let's be clear here. In this time of immense uncertainty, and with a lot of political players going off the rational script and blazing their own ideological trail with the erosion of political norms, the hyper-political ideology, the US versus them mentality, and the weaponization of political jockeying, it is a volatile recipe for internal disaster. Times are very, very different now, and looking through the fictitious, nostalgic lens of a bygone era of 50 years ago, I feel is a massive mistake.
Everywhere in the USA, people like the new Instant Maxwell House.
It's the most happy flavor,
Deep and hearty flavor.
it's the most happy flavor in the USA.
Those famous flavor buds of real coffee are now bursting with new fresh roast flavor. Flavor you can smell in the new aroma, see in the deeper color. It's the most happy flavor in the USA. New Instant Maxwell House.
It is said we're in new spine-chilling territory now. The horrifying truth is the situation is ripe for this outcome, because things didn't escalate to this extent before, as long as the other side capitulated. But those times are gone. The breakdown of internal cohesion is why this situation with the redistricting wars is a very, very precarious situation. Because once things really get going, it's almost impossible to stop. For example, 6th Republican-led states have sent their National Guard troops to D.C. as a law enforcement takeover, and it slowly spreads emotionally to other opponent strongholds like Chicago as they prepare for battle.
California Governor Gavin Newsom signing 2 redistricting bills Thursday afternoon, bringing the redistricting showdown to California voters in a November special election.
We're not just identifying a problem, we're actually trying to solve a problem. And it's a problem of their making, but they shot the first, but they shot the first, but they shot the first.
Let's not fool ourselves, these are all signs of combative readiness, as the mayor and governor stated in a press briefing. To be clear here, whether you're against it or for it doesn't really matter. The obvious question and problem will be, what is the counterbalance to something that may seem unfair to the other group? And will the other group's response be proportional, doubtful? This is where the real interesting dynamic dilemma lies. in the potentially catastrophic chain reaction. The down spiral precipice. Many of these decisions are being made in an environment devoid of logistical rationale or with a consequential long-term outlook. They have hypnotized themselves into a delusional reality that it won't affect anyone. It's an insulated issue. But in the world of combat, there is no such thing as an isolated incident. But the question you may be asking now is, where did all of this tension and hostile aggression come from? Well, to understand ground zero of the redistricting wars, let's begin with a term called gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is the manipulation of boundaries of the electoral constituency so as to favor one party or class. That's right, the primal human behavior we are all historically familiar with. The forceful consolidating of power in a way that benefits another group. If that sounds unfair, or if that sounds like something that would be an instigating issue, you would be right. Because you have to ask, if one particular party starts to gerrymander a district in their favor, for whatever reason that floats their boat, then you best believe there's going to be a retaliatory response from the other side. As they do the same, this is how small skirmishes grow into bigger wars. It starts small, with tit for tat.
Well, we start tonight at 5 with breaking news. Missouri will officially enter the national redistricting debate. Governor Mike Kehoe announcing a special session this afternoon. KSHB 41 political reporter Charlie Keegan got the heads up on this yesterday, and he joins us from the newsroom with details. Charlie.
Governor Mike Kehoe is calling legislators back to Jefferson City on September 3rd, next Wednesday. He's asking them to redraw the boundaries of the state's congressional districts, creating a map that he calls the Missouri First map.
But then quickly evolves into something more monstrously grotesque. Most analysts overlook reality is a bitch, because as things escalate with California and Texas, their reactive emotional responses will not be proportional, because this is a proliferating issue. For example, let's say one particular group then is put in a position where they're compromised in a hurtful way. Well, then that group and its portion of citizens that are politically invested in it will want to see some sort of compensation retaliatory response. And since it comes from a place of emotional compensation, it most likely will be extreme. Several conflicts throughout history have been sparked by seemingly trivial or absurd reasons. The Pig War of 1859 between the U.S. and Britain over a pig, the Football War of 1969 between Honduras and El Salvador, ignited by a soccer match, and the Jenkins Ear War of 1739, fueled by a severed ear. All these absurdly small events highlight this phenomenon. The salvos have already been fired in this internal Cold War. With the court system, the courts are supposed to be neutral in any sort of political battle, but not when it comes to internal Cold Wars. Each side jockeys for position, for rulings and verdicts that favor their particular agenda. The court system loses its neutrality and actually becomes a political battlefield in the civil Cold War. Lawyers are soldiers used in this battlefield. Rulings are used to bolster one's gains and losses. All the while, the energy from this seemingly non-violent escapade, in fact, is a powder keg, because the people who are in the areas that are being forcefully redistricted that unfavors them will now feel like victims who have been violated. The same as though they were hit with shrapnel from an explosion. And their emotional response will be the same. This is how things escalate. Wars quickly moved from the theater of paper and pen to blood and bullets when things get out of control. This is why the Founding Fathers invented a way that people could express their feelings and emotion in a non-violent way, like voting. Voting was an invention made in order to limit physical violent responses to a more peaceful, productive way. Instead of bullets, they used the ballot box. Instead of arms, and confrontation, the people had a robust debating platform. But what most supposedly educated intellectuals overlook is this civilized systematic discourse is in fact wafer thin and fragile beyond belief. Because once these things become compromised, the tried and true draconian method of physical violence will inevitably return with absolute gusto, and thus, the launching pad for this horrific outcome could very well be the redistricting wars. What makes this particular event so momentous and intriguing is that we already know the historical ending of these types of stories, this type of behavior, and what it will do. The adversarial way of implementing certain policies, drawing biased geographical lines, weaponizing the citizens to become fervent fanatical ideologues of their particular party, a US versus them mentality that is being solidified by the sociological fires of the redistricting wars, where the constituents become the conscripted army, the enablers of carnage, where the regular individuals believe that they have been wronged by whichever side they hate. And since this hostile situation of the redistricting wars is run on hyper-emotions, well, there's no telling how many innocents will be swallowed up by this mass deterioration. Yet, this is the real funny part about all this. It's all on autopilot now, and the destination already has been set.